Um, Today's Earth Day. It's also Orthodox Day, according to the news program. I started the day where George Washington Bridge, the upper deck, had some congestion going on, was backing up. Um, that's not, that's just a synopsis. It's not a, what I would call punishable offense necessarily, because who knows who put that in place or in order. Who am I? I'm nobody. I'm one frightened woman in New York watching this all play out, and looking for signs that stick out in the way that. So I'm watching this particular story, and this particular story has in it a woman who comes on. She was apparently, I don't know the name of when you put someone in charge of something. They were, I don't even know, again, like 50s and 60s. I don't think Linda and Lou were involved in riots and protests and things. I don't think so. I'm not quite sure, though. They don't talk about it. So I don't have words for the crew. But this morning, in something called a College Point, Queens, they had what looked like, I don't want to insult by saying old timer tactics, but that's really how I feel. I feel that they are the tried, the true tried and failed generation, where when nothing, they had special tasks given them. So when they stand up and say, hey, let's try this, I am really listening to them with keen eye and keen ear. Because there's a large insult factor that goes on. There are very hard lines that have been drawn. I completely understand that. One of the pieces on this evening news was about something that I'm not kept in the loop of, but someone wrote a book. It says, "This shall not pass," between Trump, Biden, and something else. And so I'm looking at this fulcrum, if you will, of the Big Apple, in a two triangle kind of a way. We're in New York. There's still the New York Times, which is a publication. I don't have money coming in, so I don't purchase it. I use the local ledger. For reference, just recently, I've made light of it twice. As just with the calendar, I'm trying to use the utilities I can gain access to, and others can verify if something was needed. So I'm looking at this woman and I'm listening to her professionalism. I don't know what she does. I don't know what the walk of life is. It doesn't matter. She looked professional. She had what I would call as a beret, but not a militarized zone beret. It was a supporter of something greater, and installing a piece of fashion upon her person in order to make more of a theatrical point of professionalism. Um, I was very impressed with the way she spoke. I find that's how I speak in American, in my American anyway, or my flat English. I don't know what the proper word is for that. Now, some of the signage said something about Exxon. I don't do corporate stuff. I don't know. The symbols of this Exxon, I don't know. Gas, oil, I'm not getting in the middle of that. What they were mostly upset about is the fact that New York Times does not report on Earth Day things the way that it's required by some. They always have the old adage, like, who keeps the lights on? Who pays the bills? Most people, it's like, usually, the man, I don't know if it's the man next door, the man upstairs, I don't know. But for me at the moment, it's whatever. So I'm watching this, and she's trying to run an operation, and she's using English that may have been acceptable in the preceding decades before and leading into the 70s. It's possible. But something changed. There was some rise in children interested in all sorts of things, like communications, like television, like broadcasting, like acting, like all sorts of things that all of a sudden filled places and whatnot that they don't belong. And they took away spots of people that were slotted for those things. Then it pans over to your typical New Yorker. Like, I don't know, I think they're just the drivers of the New York Times trucks, and like their typical opinion, like they're so bothered with everything. I get it. I absolutely hate what New York's turned into myself. I want to be proud of the city. I do. I want to be proud of the city. I want to be proud of the management. I want to be proud of the family. I want to be proud of the guy that's supposed to be feeding us, and I don't know where he went off to. But all I see is someone else is in the way of the process. And I don't know how to send a message that's acceptable. So I'm watching this, and then I hear the drivers, like, brush off, like, can't be bothered with it. I'm like, yeah, sounds like typical New Yorker. And then, but then there's, like, the other part of him, like, when he said his union hall meeting, like, just tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Right, yeah, it's just that, it's a pendulum with them. It is. You want to stay on their good side, because they will participate. They just need to know why, and is it going to get us results? And is it going to keep our families safe and our families fed? So there's that. And then, like, he throws in his logic, which I get, of running all of these trucks with all this gasoline in place is just not good for the earth either. No, it's not. How would you like us to shut down all the city services at that point if it's just one day to prove one point and everybody's so upset at that moment at wasted resources when they sat around on their keisters for, like, I don't know, last 9 decades, as far as I can count, and, like, without putting a number on it, while the world, like, in this area just had some issues. So, whatever. So city services are running gasoline on the trucks. It makes part of the problem happy. But I have other things on my mind, and that small tab ain't one of them at the moment. Especially when I see Minnesota's got college or university laboratories of glass greenhouses showing the disturbing effects. I'm seeing massive fires out West that they're finally showing on the TV. I have one of the only in New York operating newspapers. I don't have access to know what else has operating information newspapers. I also don't, there's New York Post, there's the New York Times, and then I have the Bayside Times in more localized ledger that I have access to. That is still in publication. I don't know, by God's grace, it's still in publication. I don't know how any of that back stuff works. I just know from a visual taking inventory, here's what I got on the front end. Here's what's still operating and working, because there's some real issues and it needs to be addressed. So that was that. But the English that the woman used was, if you're a local and you speak English as a first language in just regular street talk, regular conversation, I understood her message of what she was trying to point out and get across. The problem is, whatever's happened over the last few decades leading to this escalation in climate change, in greenhouse gas, in the like consumption and the increased everything, the communication's gone down. The standard of communication has gone down even in the city of New York, because there's so much of not us inside New York. And I don't know how. They've got their own foreign ministries. They got now inside ministries. Then you got competing ministries, it sounds like. I mean, I went to the local, it was on camera. I went to Rite Aid tonight to buy milk for Linda. I walked there. And the conversation between the cashier and the other woman, they're from two different nationalities completely, like black and white, but not my whatever. And there was a man, there was a person, but if the male, whatever. And I mean, the words that these women spoke in front of this man, oh my God. And I could see how embarrassed he was. I'm just like, my God, what does this world come into?
Police arrested 15 people early today as they staged an Earth Day protest at the New York Times printing plant in Queens. The protest began just after midnight at the entrance of the plant.
So now there's some signs inside of here. It says NYPD. There's a flag here. Some of the signs, though, I don't recognize. I don't know if they're specific to whatever they have going on.
In College Point. The demonstrators are angry over the lack of coverage in the media on the environment, and their protest delayed or...
So now you have some kind of tree configuration up here. Again, I don't know what the words are in a professional standard for any of this stuff.
Early morning deliveries at the Times and other publications. Eyewitness News reporter Derek Waller with more.
Well, these protesters say they simply don't like the way that major news outlets are reporting on climate change. And so this Earth Day, they delivered their own message.
It's a climate and ecological crisis is already here and destroying people's lives, and we want that out.
And with that in mind, overnight, these climate change activists with the group Extinction Rebellion handcuffed themselves together inside metal barrels, blocking the exits of this newspaper printing facility in College Point. Two other protesters propelled themselves from 25-foot-high wooden tripods. Police eventually brought over a ladder and arrested them. Demonstrators wanted to make it harder for the police to make...
See, break the silence. U.S. Empire, #1 climate destroyer. Again, there's a point at which resilience and resign takes responsibility, but again, lack of cooperation by what's needed, because it's almost like I feel, and I don't know how I feel this, but as if there's some kind of, Mayor Adams put up or Bill Clinton put up playbook. And I'm like, thinking to myself, so if they were all playing, if, and only if, they were all playing out of the same playbook at one point, and then some unspoken of or something happened that they couldn't get out to everybody all at once, started shifting or turning over things because they themselves were unprepared for, because they thought they were playing by the book, in like 100-year plans kind of a thing, or somebody decided not to play by the rules somewhere else, things shifted. I almost feel like, why can't a couple of those good ones get together and ask for playbook change in order to secure the main line? There has to be a way for the Mount Rushmore children, which is what I call it. But I mean, again, there's statute. There's statutes, there's statute. I don't read or write in family. I've got my local whatever symbols that I use. But in slave speak, I'm just, not that I want to be, but, and then I had things happen inside here that then took other tolls out and things which are not acceptable by standards of ISO, but here we are.
Make arrests, and it worked.
We're glad that it's taking this much time, because it stopped the news from getting out for about 5 hours so far. And we have...
So I'm thinking that this is the example of an arrestable offense. That's most likely why I have never, ever gone out on a limb like this particular one, because the arrest part scares the hell out of me. Like getting a record.
We have a blockade in the front as well, so no one has left.
The tactics, protesting tools from an old playbook, still being used in the digital age.
How are you going to stop the internet?
And yet,
Typical New Yorker.
by 5:30 in the morning, the physical printed paper also finally made it on the road, though we did get reports that many papers did not make it in time. Still, delivery driver Garson Cannon...
Now, I'm looking at my guys in New York that are driving, because they're all out of the trucks, and they all look like North Americans. I'm glad they were able to get this one shot of they are here and they do exist, because there are so many other drivers that I see that get out of trucks and or pile into trucks, and I'm just like, how did they get that job? Like, I mean, these are like union jobs, and they're for like long life contracts of employment and labor statistics. And I'm like, you're planning like our obsolescence at some level? Isn't that what you're supposed to be combating?
was not impressed.
They just wasted their time and a whole bunch of resources from New York City. And if you want to help global warming, there's 200 trucks here running.
Says the non-independently wealthy guy, might I add. If I had a conversation with him, and if the microphone on the universal remote was on, and I could ask him, now, if the independently wealthy guy is thinking of writing our meal ticket for like the next, I don't know, until we both expire, was at his desk and needed, for some reason, an example on the news. And he said, whatever the procedure is, because he doesn't know it's going to cost New York City, and there might be a bill that, like, somebody has to pay, and then somebody might get in trouble for, or, like, nobody gives a shit. He's writing your meal ticket for, like, the next whatever. Think you could just get out there and just whatever? Just maybe?
With this issue.
Late this morning, the New York Times, which owns the facility, issued a statement that reads in part, "Climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time," adding, "In the past year, we've published more than 5,000 pieces of climate journalism. And while we fully support this group's right to express their point of view, disrupting our business operations and depriving people of critical information is not acceptable."
And so more than a dozen protesters were arrested, facing charges including obstructing governmental administration, trespassing, and disorderly conduct. They were released on summonses. They'll have to come back to court at a later date.
Nothing tastes like freedom more than trying to exercise your right and being hauled off to jail. Wow. Time to, like, reanalyze and reprioritize just how free we are at the moment. There is a way to have freedom within reason.
Reporting from College Point, Queens, I'm Derek Waller, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Meanwhile, Mayor Adams is doing his part on Earth Day by launching a new campaign to promote green buildings.
We want New York to be the leader in climate change and protecting our environment and our climate.
I'm stopping the message right there because I got conflict. Look at this guy. He's like, yeah, really? I'm just saying. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.